Guys, I really miss older fire alarms that were harder to mess around with. This alarm was not that easy to mess around with when it was installed in a real building because it had a sealed candela, a sealed volume, a sealed tone, and a sealed pattern. So, this alarm was very hard to mess around with. But the problem with this alarm, just like any other fire alarm out there, is that it is easy to unscrew it off the wall. Well, to solve that, here is a tip with fire alarms in public buildings. Make sure that you put a tamper screw on them so it can be harder for people to try to take the alarm off the wall. Today's fire alarms are multi-candela, multi-tone, multi-pattern, and multi-volume. Which, unfortunately, there is a lot you can mess with today's alarms. I really hate these modern alarms of today that are very easy to mess with. So we need to bring old fire alarm devices back that were harder for people to mess around with. Like the Edwards 892 electronic horn strobes with the dual fire lettering on the lens of the strobe. Those alarms were very hard to mess around with because it only had one tone, one volume, one pattern, and one candela. Which was good for a elementary school alarm. Because those things were installed in my elementary school. It was very hard for kids to mess around with those things. But today's alarms are very easy for kids to mess around with. Not good. Now we really need to educate people not to tamper with fire alarms today, because a lot of today's alarms have a lot of things that you can mess around with, like the tone, the pattern, the candela, and the volume. And I miss the pre-EST Genesis days. Because there was no worries about crossing out the image of the Running Man escaping from the fire or ripping that image out. I miss the fire alarms that were released before the Integrity and the Genesis from EST. After the Genesis came out, it was not that hard for people to mess around with alarms. So I miss the pre-Genesis days. The Wheelock MT. I miss the pre-Wheelock MT days, because that was the first multi-tone alarm. I just want to go back to older alarms with very few things to mess around with. And definitely go back to the pre-Genesis days. Bye.